Assalamu alaikum everybody. Our lesson today is talking about geometric patterns. Firstly, how to complete any pattern easily. As we talk in grade 4, firstly we have to know the rule of the pattern to complete that pattern easily. So if I want to complete any pattern, I have to tell you what is the rule of this pattern. So firstly, to show what do I mean in that lesson, let's solve that example. He's saying in this question or in this example, Emma has $100 in her saving account. George has $50 in his saving account. They each put $10 in their accounts at the end of each week. So again, Emma has how much money here? Emma has $100 and George has $50 in his saving account. They each put $10 in their accounts at the end of each week. Complete the tables to see how much each of them has saved after 5 weeks. What patterns do you notice here? Firstly, as I said, you have to get the rule. What is the rule of the pattern here? Of course, he said they each put $10 in their accounts at the end of each week. So the rule of our pattern in this question exactly add 10. Firstly, let's make tables here. The first table is for Emma and the second table for George. Firstly, Emma starts with $100. That means she had $100 before, and at the end of each week she is putting $10 in her saving account. So of course, at the end of the first week, her money will be increased. Only I'm gonna add $10 more, which will be $110, because the rule again is add 10 here. Okay, then add another 10 will be 120 for the second week, another 10 will be 130 for the third week, another 10 will be 140, add another 10 will be 150 in the fifth week. So how much money does she save in the fifth week or after the fifth week? Exactly, will be $150. Okay, what about George? George starts, as he said in the question, with $50. Okay, so he starts by $50, and at the end of each week he's putting $10 in his saving account. So what is the rule of George also? I'm going to add 10 to the 50 to get how much money did he save in the first week or at the end of the first week. Okay, exactly, just add 10 to 50, which will be $60, and add 10 will be $70, then add another 10 will be $80, then add another 10 will be $90, then add another 10 will be $100. So he said in the question, complete the tables. Of course, we completed the table easily now, the tables easily. After that, to see how much each of them has saved after 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, Emma has saved how much money? Yes, it is shown. It's shown here. It is so clear here. For the fifth week, Emma has saved $150. So how much money she has saved in the or Emma has saved in the after the fifth week? Of course, will be $150. For George, after or at the end of the fifth week, also he has saved $100. So again, guys, without knowing the rule of the pattern, without knowing the rule of completing those tables, of course, we cannot complete those tables easily. Okay, let's take one more example. Lindsay has a sage plant that's 3.5 inches tall. She also has a rosemary plant, which is 5.2 inches tall. So Lindsay has two plants here, a sage plant and a rosemary plant. The sage plant is 3.5 inches tall, and the rosemary plant is 5.2 inches tall. Both plants grow 1.5 inches taller each week. So what is the rule of our question here? Exactly, plus or add 1.5, because he said both plants, which is sage plant and rosemary plant, grow 1.5 inches each week. Okay, how tall will the plants be after 5 weeks? And after that, what is the relationship between the heights of the plants? Firstly, let's make tables, or let's get the rule of that question. He said both plants grow 1.5 inches taller each week. So the rule here, of course, will be add 1.5. Okay, now let's make a table for both plants. The first plant, which is sage plant, he said that it was 3.5 inches tall, and at the end of each week it will be growing up 1.5 inches taller. Okay, so just add 1.5 to 3.5 to be at the end of the first week will be 5 inches tall. then add 1.5 to 5 to be at the end of the second week 6.5 inches tall, then add another 1.5 to 6.5 to be 8 inches tall at the end of the third week, then another 1.5 added to 8 will be 9.5 at the end of the fourth week, then add another 1.5 to 9.5 will be 11 inches tall at the end of the fifth week. That's for what? That's for sage plant. What about rosemary plant? Also using the same way, using the same rule, which is adding 1.5. First, he said that the rosemary plant was 5.2 inches tall. Okay, at the end of each week, also it will be growing up 1.5 inches. So just add 1.5 to 5.2. How to add decimals here? I think that everybody knows that. Yes, I told you that before. You can add mentally, or you can put them in vertical way, just line up the numbers, then add normally like adding whole numbers. 5.2 plus 1.5, just add 2 and 5 will be 7, then put the point at the same place, then 5 plus 1 will be 6. So at the end of the first week, the rosemary plant, yes, the rosemary plant will be 6.7 inches tall. Then add another 1.5 to 6.7 will be 8.2 at the end of the second week. Then add another 1.5 to 8.2 will be 9.7 inches tall at the end of the third week. Then add another 1.5 will be 11.2 at the end of the fourth week. Then add another 1.5 will be 12.7 at the end of the fifth week. So how tall will the plants be after 5 weeks? I knew now that the sage plant will be 11 inches tall at the end of the fifth week, or after 5 weeks will be 11 inches tall, and the rosemary plant will be 12.7 inches after 5 weeks. Okay, here I answered the first part in the question, which is how tall will the plants be after 5 weeks. I got them now. After that, what is the relationship between the heights of plants? The heights of the plants, guys. First, look at the table. Okay, and I want you to get the difference the difference of height between both plants. Okay, take any two numbers for the same week. For example, for the second week, or for the third week, for example. Okay, for the third week, the sage plant was what? The sage plant was 8 inches tall, and the rosemary plant was 9.7 inches tall. Just subtract them. What will I get? I'll get 1.7. Also for the second, or for the first week, at the end of the first week, the rosemary plant will be 6.7 and the sage plant will be 5 inches tall. Just minus them or subtract them will be 1.7. Okay, also for the fifth week, or after the fifth week, the rosemary plant will be 12.7 inches tall and the sage plant will be 11 inches tall. If you subtract them, you will get also 1.7. So I can say the relationship between those plants, that usually the rosemary plant is 1.7 inches taller than the sage plant, and that's the relationship between both plants. So what is the relationship again? Just subtract the height of those plants, okay? But for the same week, for the first week together, for the second week together, for the third week, and so on. Okay, so usually the rosemary plant is always 1.7 inches taller than the sage plant, or you can say it by another way, the sage plant is always 1.7, yes, shorter than the rosemary plant. Okay, guys? Okay, let's answer the next question now, which are related to that example, which is rosemary plant and sage plant. For question number 1, Anthony said the pattern is that the sage plant is always 1.7 inches shorter than the rosemary plant. Yes, do you agree? Of course. Yes, of course, yes. He is correct. Why he is correct? Because I just said right now. I said that the rosemary plant is always 1.7 taller than the sage plant. Or we can say the opposite of this sentence, which will be correct also, which can be the sage plant is always 1.7 shorter than the rosemary plant. Of course, I agree. Yes? So if the rosemary plant is always 1.7 inches taller, then the sage plant is always 1.7 inches shorter. Exactly like that. Question 2, he said, how does making tables help you identify relationship between terms and patterns? Yes, you can line up the terms and compare them easily because everything will be clear in the tables. Yes, everything will be clear in the tables, and you can see what is the height of that of sage plant in the, for example, in the first week, or at the end of the first week, at the end of the fifth week. Everything is clear in the table. You can get them easily. Okay. Question 3: if the plants continue to grow 1.5 inches each week, yeah, which is the rule, of course. How tall will each plant be after 10 weeks? How to get the answers easily? Just only complete the tables. I stopped with only with the 5th week, so complete the table for another 5 weeks more to get after 10 weeks. Each plant will be how many inches taller? How many inches tall? Yes, or how tall will each plant will be after 10 weeks? Only complete the tables. So if you completed the tables, you can get them easily. Okay, so the rosemary plant will be 18.5 inches tall, and that's the sage plant, excuse me. So the sage plant will be 18.5 inches tall, and the rosemary plant will be 20.2 inches tall. Or you can do this question exactly by multiplying 1.5 by 10, which is the 10 weeks. Okay, will be 15. Then just add 15 to how tall was the sage plant, which was, I think, it was 3.5. Just add 3.5 and 15. What did you get from multiplying 1.5 and by 10 weeks? Will be 15. Just add 15 and 3.5. It was for the sage, would be 18.5 inches tall after 10 weeks. Also now, after multiplying 1.5 by 10 weeks will be 15. Just add it to the rosemary plant, which was 5.2. 5.2 plus 15 exactly will be 20.2. So you can answer this question by two ways, which is completing the tables to get how many after 10 weeks, or you can multiply 1.5 by 10, then add to how much tall they were. Okay, so the sage plant was 3.5 and the rosemary plant was 5.2. Question 4, if the plants continue to grow 1.5 inches each week, how tall will each plant be after 15 weeks? Also, you can complete the table 15 weeks or five more weeks, okay, to get in the 15th week would be how much for both, okay, or how tall for both. So the sage plant will be 26 inches tall and the rosemary plant will be 27.7 inches tall. How to do those questions, guys? Only complete the tables. Just follow the pattern. Add 1.5 to get the next number. So add 1.5 to the 5th week to get this to get the 6th week. To get the 7th week, also add 1.5. Add 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 to get the next one. To get after 10 weeks to get the answer, which is 18.5 for sage and 20.2 for rosemary. After 15 weeks, also continue the pattern. Also continue adding 1.5 to each week to get the next week. To get after 15 weeks will be 26 for sage and 27.7 for rosemary. Okay. One more question, or let's answer the next question. He said for questions 5 to 7, use the rule, add 0.50. So what is the rule here? He told me that the rule is plus 0.50. Okay. Question 5, he said Tim and Jill each have a piggy bank. Tim starts with $1.25 in his saving account in his bank, and puts in the bank 0.50 each week. At the end of each week, he's putting $0.50. Jill starts with 2.75 in her bank and also puts $0.50 each week. Complete the tables to show how much each has saved after 5 weeks. Exactly, I can do it easily because I knew the rule, which is add 0.50. Here, Tim firstly starts with $1.25. Just add 0.50 will be 1.75. Then add another 0.50 will be 2.25. Then add another 0.50 will be 2.75. Then add another 0.50 will be 3.25. Then add another 0.50 will be 3.75, and that's for Tim. So how much money Jim has saved after 5 weeks? Yes, $3.75. What about Jill? Using the same way, using the same rule, which is plus 0.50. So just add 0.50 to 2.75 exactly will be 3.25. Add another 0.50 to be 3.75. Then add another 0.50 will be 4.25. Add another 0.50 will be 4.75. Another 0.50 will be 5.25. So Jill has saved after 5 weeks $5.25. That's the answer of question number 5, because only he wanted me to complete the table, and I have completed the table correctly now, using of course the rule which is adding 0.50. Question 6, he said, what is the relationship, or what relationship do you notice between the amount Tim has saved and the amount Jill has saved each week? As I said to you, just get the difference between both of them in the same week. For example, 3.75 minus 2.25 for the second week. For the second week, Jill has saved the 3.75 and Tim has saved the 2.25. If you subtracted them, what will I get? I'll get exactly 1.50. For another week, yes, for example, for the fourth week, Jill has saved $4.75. Tim has saved $3.25. If you subtract them also, you will get $1.50. So I can say, yes, Jill always has $1.50 more saved than Tim. Or we can say the opposite, which is Tim always has $1.50 less saved than of course Jill. Okay, guys, so only subtract them to get the relationship between them. Someone is $1.50 more than the other one, or the other one is $1.50 less than the first one, whatever, like that. Okay, question 7, if Tim and Jill continue saving in this way, how much will each have saved after 10 weeks? What will I do for this one now? Just complete the table. Okay, to get after 10 weeks will be what? Just add 0.50, 0.50, 0.50 to get after 10 weeks. Both of them will be what? Okay, or you can do it by the other way, which is multiplying the rule by the number of weeks. Just multiply the rule, which is what? Which is 0.50 by the number of weeks, which will be 5, excuse me. So firstly, 10 by 0.50 will be 5. How to multiply 10 by 0.50? Easily, just move the decimal point to the right. Only one movement, because I'm multiplying by 10 here, so which will be 0.5, which is going to be of course 5. So firstly, multiply the rule by the number of weeks, okay, which is 10 times 0.50 will be 5. Okay, now add 5 to how much money was with Tim before saving money. Okay, Tim had firstly 1.25, so you just add 5 to 1.25 to be 6.25 after 10 weeks for Tim. What about Jill? Also add $5 to how much money was with Jill, 2.75. So Jill had 2.75, with adding $5 more will be $7.75 after 10 weeks.